I got a message for you today. It is so important for you to learn how to block out your environment so that you can hear from God, so that you can hear what He's saying and hear it clearly. It's also important for you to know how to walk the path that God is calling you to walk without distractions. And so, to drive my point home, I'm going to share a story. And I promise you, this story is going to bless somebody who's patient enough to listen to the entire video. I remember a time when my daughter was just a few months old, and God dropped in my spirit that I was moving to Texas. And I remember thinking, Texas? I don't know anything about Texas. That's crazy. But I also remember feeling like a sense of peace with this message that God was dropping in my spirit. And so I decided to adopt the message. And I remember I told a friend girl of mine, I said, girl, I'm moving to Texas. And she was like, girl, I'm moving too. And I was like, okay. So then life, went on. And this was in about 2015, 2016 when God dropped this message in my spirit. And so I ended up right after that getting into a relationship. And this was a relationship that I did not consult with God about. And the relationship was thriving, or so I thought. And then one day, suddenly, the relationship just started to crumble. And I had no reason to believe that there was something wrong in my relationship. I had no signs that something was wrong, and there was no understanding as to why this person just started to go silent on me. And after what felt like eternity, it was probably just a few months, but I reached out to that person. I was like, it's apparent that I'm not what you want, so let me go ahead and slide to the side and let you live your life. And so I ended that relationship, and then I ended up back in the will of God. And I'm doing my thing, I'm thriving, and then God drops it in my spirit again. Tiffany, you're moving to Texas. And this time I decide to go ahead and adopt it because what do I have to lose, right? And so I'm thriving, I'm moving, I'm vibing. And I remember having like a lot of support from people, but I also remember having a lot of naysayers, people who said I was crazy, you shouldn't do this, you don't know what you're doing, just leaving your comfort zone to go do something and go a place where you know no one. And I'm so glad I did not listen to those people, because the moment I surrendered to God and I said, okay, if Texas is where you want me to go, I'm going, all of a sudden everything started to flow. When I say I didn't have to lift a finger to make it happen, I didn't have to lift a finger. So 2016, God dropped the message into my spirit. 2019, I finally took the leap of faith and I moved to Dallas, Texas, right? So I get to Dallas. Once again, I'm thriving. Life is going. And then I start to feel uncomfortable, right? And I'm so uncomfortable that I'm distracted by the fact that my life is actually thriving. I'm not thinking about the fact that I gave away everything to my name, leaving my hometown, and God gave it all back to me in 6 months. I'm not focused on that, because all I'm focused on is I'm uncomfortable and I need this feeling to stop. So I eventually get to the point to where I can't take being uncomfortable anymore. And I decide to transfer the job I had at the time back to my hometown. So I didn't call my ex like, hey, I'm coming back. He's excited. I'm like, I'm about to get my life back. And everything was arranged. And then a few days before the start date, God said, don't give up on Texas. I don't want you to go. And I had to sit with that. And I was like, okay, God, I remember the last time I ain't listened to you. I know how that played out. And so I decided to decline the job offer. Fast forward, literally 2 months later, that's when COVID hit. And everybody who had left the job before me and people who had transitioned, all of those people lost their jobs. But I still had my job. That was nothing but God. So then we're going through the pandemic, and I'm still, once again, I'm listening to God, but I'm uncomfortable. I don't like it here. I don't want to be here. So I'm taking trips to Houston, and I'm loving Houston. And so then one day I get the courage and I'm like, you know what? YOLO, you only live once. I'm going to Houston. So again, didn't consult with God, or at least I did briefly, but his answer wasn't clear, and I decided to step out on faith. And I'll never forget the job that I was working, the one that I was trying so hard to get away from. When I announced that I was leaving, my supervisor said to me, he said, Tiffany, if you get to Houston and you don't like it and things don't work out, you can always come home. And I remember thinking, wow, nobody has ever said that to me. No job, no organization or environment has ever appreciated me enough to say something like that to me. And I carried those words with me, and I carry them with me even to today. And so I get to Houston. Once again, I'm thriving, I'm vibing, life is lifing. And then boom, my mom gets sick. And we spend months going to this doctor, that doctor, just trying to get answers as to why she's not feeling well. Why is she in so much pain? And I'll never forget one of our many hospital trips. My mom was in excruciating pain. And I mean excruciating. And I remember the doctor pulling me to the side, and he's like, come outside, let me speak to you for a second. And he looked me in my face and he told me, he said, I think that what your mom is going through is all in her mind. And I remember being so infuriated. I was so angry. And I was like, see, it's Texas. I wasn't supposed to move to Texas. Everything is just not working out. And before my mom got sick, I had actually planned to move to North Carolina. I was trying to get close to home, but not go home. And so once my mom got sick, I decided, okay, we're not moving because I got to focus on getting her better. And then I remember thinking maybe a new start is what we need, you know. And once again, I'm announcing to people, hey, I think we're about to move again. And I remember really getting pushback from a lot of people like, hey, something is wrong with you. One person actually had the audacity to say that to me, like, I don't know what you're going through or what you got going on, but something must be wrong with you because you keep moving. And so I was like, okay, whatever. Of course, I did what I wanted to do. And we uprooted and moved to North Carolina overnight, literally. And I had a job offer, so I wasn't going out there blind. But I'll never forget having so much pushback with this move. The person that was helping us move, he ended up ghosting me in the middle of the move. It's like I was fighting, and it was just tug of war. And I'm just trying to get moved, get my mom some new insurance so that she can get a fresh start and we can figure out what's going on with her. And so, side note, I want to say this too. Sometimes when we're following God's voice or we're doing something that we're supposed to do, when we get pushed back and it starts to get hard for us, it's easy for us to assume that this must not be the will of God. But sometimes the pushback is a sign that the enemy is working overtime to block what God is doing. So back to the story. So we finally make it to North Carolina. And again, as soon as we touch down, all the chaos stopped. The first doctor that I took my mom to, he figured out what was wrong with her within weeks. Mind you, I was in Houston for months and we were just being given the runaround. Nobody was trying to figure out what was going on. But I make this move to this place in North Carolina, and all of a sudden we have clarity on what's going on. So my mom ends up getting diagnosed with cancer and they start to treat her, right? Beautiful, beautiful experience. My mom had the best medical care, so much so that she is healed from cancer to this day. Thank you, God. And I'm thriving once again in North Carolina, living my life. And then I start to feel lonely, and I start to feel like maybe I uprooted before I got my blessing that God told me I was supposed to get. And my mom started to feel better. And I told God, I said, if you will open the door for me to go back to Texas, I promise you I will not forfeit this blessing this time. And in the back of my head, I'm not thinking God is about to let me go back. Like, I know he can, but the question is, will he? And so I just put that out. I gave it to God and I didn't worry about it. Then suddenly started getting I was applying for jobs in Texas, and then suddenly all these people started calling, and I finally got a job. And I was like, okay, God, I know for a fact this time, this is you. So I am going back to Texas. And fast forward to today, I'm sitting going through a storm in my life. And I'm asking God, like, why does this feel familiar? Like, why am I here? And I remembered everything that I had been through. And it dawned on me, you stepped out of the will of God again. And that's why your life is in chaos. That's why things are falling apart. And I'm currently in the process of being back in God's will, but I share this story with you to let you know, when you have a plan, that's amazing. But when God has a plan, it's going to blow your mind. And if I had listened to all the people who said I shouldn't do this and I shouldn't do that, I would not be where I am today. Now I understand the lesson after 3, 4, 5, 6 times of messing up. But I'm hoping and praying that you don't have to go through the same thing that I went through. So when you get into a quiet place and you listen for God's voice and you're intentional about speaking to him and hearing from him, you will get everything that you need as far as what you should be doing in life. I hope this blesses somebody like it has blessed me. I love you. Have an amazing day.